Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. You can find me, my books, and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. The book Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, came out in 2020, followed by Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth, followed by Raised by These Wolves, How Family and Federal Courts Are Failing Our Children in 2023, followed by Raised by These Wolves, Volume 2, Child Trafficking Through the Foster Care and Court Systems, which came out July 17th of 2024 as a bestseller. Again, please feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcasting going. And I have a brand new guest. Very happy to have Gina Dobson on. She's a friend of mine. She is also an actor, a writer, and a producer. It wasn't until her two children reached adulthood that she also revealed herself as a wrongly accused felon. In 1998, carrying only her 1-year-old son and a piggy bank of change, Gina fled from years of life-threatening abuse from an ex-boyfriend. 2 weeks after her escape, Gina was arrested for murder. Her ex-boyfriend had filed a false report claiming that the miscarriage Gina had 5 years earlier was actually a murder. After months behind bars for the sake of protecting her child and her financially and emotionally drained family, Gina accepted a plea bargain for a lesser felony that would grant her her freedom. After years of feeling broken by the abuse of the criminal courts and her criminal record, Gina now spreads the message of female empowerment and joyful healing through interviews and PSAS that has increased awareness of domestic violence and promote supportive resources for victims. In the film industry, she seeks out unconventional female roles that go against the patriarchal form. Gina also co-founded BAB on 3, a female-driven film production company that embraces authenticity, encourages underrepresented people in filmmaking, and delivers the message that women need support from other women. She also has a personal website, which I will put on the podcast notes, where you can reach her at, as well as my dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. I welcome you, Gina Dobson. It's an honor to have you on, and your story is just egregious. What
Hey,
do
Marianne.
Hey, what do you think of all this? You can't make this up. This is terrible.
Yeah, and as you already said, I kind of lived a double life for the last 25 years, 26 now,
Mhm.
because I was raising my children, and I didn't want my felony or this background or people's preconception of what I may or may not have done. Thank you to the newspapers,
Oh,
but I just remained quiet, kept my head down, and did the best I can. And then, as now, as the climate becomes so strange and frightening for women's health and safety and rights in general, um, and my own daughter is close to the age I was when I was
mm,
arrested, I feel I can't be quiet. I can't be quiet. My children are grown. I've done right by them, and now I need to do right by my story and
mhm.
putting it out there.
Definitely. And I thank you for speaking out. A lot of people are afraid to speak out and share their story for retaliation or some other issues.
I feel like that's a possibility, but
Well, I hope
the truth
not.
must be heard.
The truth must be heard. People are telling their truths, and the truth must be told because it's not going to be heard in a courtroom.
That's right. It's not. I mean, when I accepted a plea bargain, I had to stand in the courtroom and confess guilt to something I had not done. The truth wasn't heard there. And you know what? The newspapers the following day did not say that I had accepted a plea bargain. It said I confessed to being guilty. And that's what the headlines read. And, who reads past the headlines?
Oh, but still, people will say, well, can't you sue them for defamation?
That's part of the plea bargain. You do not.
Oh,
You at least that's the way it was in 1998. I don't know if things have changed, and it's probably different by state too. This happened to
Right.
me in the state of Illinois.
Oh, terrible, terrible.
I was fortunate that I had the support of my husband, well, who I got married a year later, and he's been very supportive.
Mhm.
I realized that losing my civil rights as a felon, it could have been far worse for me as it is for a lot of people who accept felony charges because you lose all your civil rights. I mean, that's not just the right to vote or the right to bear arms. That's rights to like public housing and um, getting educational assistance, programs like that, you're deprived of. Some states more harsher than others, but and I only recently, within the last month, recovered my civil rights. So I'm very happy that I will be voting for the first time in my
Ah,
life next
well,
month.
now people are going to wonder, how did you do that? Because there's other people that probably have gone through this, something similar.
Yeah, and again, this varies state by state. And Virginia, where I live, used to be one of the more difficult states to recover your civil rights. Now it's no longer something you have to get a lawyer for. I was able to go online and fill out some forms, and then I had to go back to Illinois and
Uh,
produce papers from the courthouses there. So that was the most difficult part, was getting the required paperwork and filling it out. But and it did take a couple months. So I was fortunate I got it done just in time.
right. Well, that's what I mean. That's almost like reliving. You had to go back to, I take it
I,
you're living in Virginia, and then you had to go to Illinois and travel there and relive all that. I don't know if your memory's jogged by when I go back to the same city I was, horribly treated in. It's like I don't even want to go in there.
yeah, unfortunately, my family still lives in Illinois, so I have my ties there,
Yeah.
and every journey there is difficult. I I mean, it's just a necessary thing for me to
Mhm.
stay connected, but it is not easy. It's not an easy journey. When I went from, I guess it would make more sense for me to say so. I moved from Illinois to Virginia um, in 96 with a boyfriend who turned out to be a horrible alcoholic and extremely violent. And that was just part of the isolation process, getting me away
Mhm.
from my family and my connections. But we moved out to Virginia, and out here I had a son. And after I had a son, I realized that I needed to get away from him. It took that, because for me, I was so beat down and isolated and alone
Mhm.
that I wasn't I would no longer was concerned for my own well-being. But then I had this child that I was
Right.
responsible for, and I had to get him away from there. So after I left him, after I took our son and I escaped, he went to the police. And that's when he filed the charges. He called the police and he said he was concerned because I had disappeared and he didn't know where I was, although I'd left him a note.
Ah,
And that he was concerned because uh, I had lied about the miscarriage, and it wasn't a miscarriage. I had a baby and I'd killed it. So I
oh.
was, without any evidence whatsoever, I was arrested in the middle of the night from the safe house I was hiding at
Mm.
while my son was asleep. He wasn't even a year old
Oh.
yet. And I was taken to jail that night, put into isolation, not told why I was arrested. And from there, detectives ascertained that I was guilty because I showed no remorse. They questioned me. They never told me directly what I'd been arrested for. And they started asking about my boyfriend. And I told them he beat me. He beat me relentlessly, at least every other day. He knocked me unconscious. He beat me
Mhm.
with ashtrays. He chased me with a shotgun. And he said that he was going to kill me
Mhm.
while our son watched. And they didn't believe that. They said I had no evidence of being abused. And I'm like, the last few weeks I have been planning my escape, and I did my best not to make him mad. I kept my head low. I did everything he said while I was planning, and avoiding getting hit or beaten or injured to the point where I wouldn't be able to get away.
Oh.
And um, and I had actually told this to a legal aid that I went looking for help from
Hmm.
right before the arrest. And she said the same thing. I can't help you. You don't even have any bruises that I can see.
Oh.
And I asked her, I was a woman, and I said, so you're telling me I would be better off right now if I'd let him beat me more? And she said, yeah. She said, then I could help you.
But what if you had photographs? But they probably still wouldn't take that seriously.
I suppose that would have been helpful, but this was before everyone was taking pictures with there
So,
were no
yeah,
cell phones. Yeah. Yeah. I
right.
don't even know if I even owned a camera back then.
Hmm.
Um, so since I was arrested in Virginia, but the alleged crime happened in Illinois, I was extradited from Virginia to Illinois. Um, they chained me around the waist and my ankles and my wrists, and they put me in a small cage on a van, and they transferred me from one van to the other, and it took 10 days to drive from Virginia to Illinois. It was an independent uh, prisoner transport service. They crammed us into these vehicles. They wouldn't give us water except for one small cup of water for each meal and a hamburger. And was
God.
the only female on there. And the prisoners, the men were sick from hunger and overcrowded, and smell somebody vomited from being sick on there.
Uh-huh.
Um, it was it was like being cattled. We were just taken from one processing center to the next.
Ah, that's also a human rights violation.
It was that was horrifying. I'm going to tell you, I was horrified the entire time, scared. We had no idea where we were going. That's actually rested on me pretty severely.
I can't imagine.
Excuse me.
That's okay. I mean, I had a similar experience when I was going into prison for non-support, and I was the only woman, and it was a paddy wagon actually, and there was a metal divider. So I was the only woman shackled, like
Right.
you said, at the
Yeah.
wrist. Yeah, because I'm so dangerous, right? I'm so
Right.
and
Yeah.
you're shackled at your ankles. People don't realize they shackle you everywhere because you're so dangerous.
Yeah.
And you know, eh, I don't know. So it was a short drive from the courthouse to the prison, thankfully. But these guys were rambunctious and using extremely foul language, and I was trying to correct them, but that's another podcast. I don't know. Were they being vocal too, or?
The other inmates, the other detainees, actually, they were kind to me.
Uh,
I mean, we were on there for days and days, and then like, they would come and go. Like, we'd stop at other prisons and let some off and take some on. And
well,
honestly, it was the guards that were supervising they would provoke. I remember specifically, one inmate was given French fries. Everybody was hungry, mind you. Everyone was starving, and they gave this one guy French fries, and it was purely for the satisfaction of watching the fight that happened afterwards. Um, that I can't even express the violations of human dignity that occurred during that process. But the other inmates, we sat back there and quietly talked about our commonalities at that point. Tried to make the best of the fact that we were not allowed, we didn't get to bathe, we were wearing the same clothes, um, very poorly nourished. I at least got to sit on a seat, even though it was in a cage. Most of them were just sitting on benches or on the floor in a back open area in a van.
terrible. What if someone had to use a bathroom? Did they make
Oh,
bathroom stops?
very rarely. And that's why they also gave us very little to drink.
Oh, oh, that's a human rights violation.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Ah,
like to think things are better now, but I
I,
honestly, I cannot say that they are.
it's terrible. So you made it, and
Yeah.
so you're dealing with two courthouses.
Yeah. When I got to Illinois, where my family was, my mother had got already sought legal counsel for me that was ready for when I got there.
Oh,
And so
oh,
I had two lawyers assigned to my case, and then another lawyer was assigned to my son so that they could keep the criminal case and the custody case separate. Also, because it was such a big deal in the news, they kept us at two separate courthouses. So my case, my criminal case, was in Macon County, Illinois, and then my son's custody case took place in another town nearby in a courthouse there.
mm.
Mostly, I wasn't even able to get there. On a couple of times, they did drive me to the other courthouse. Uh, uh, yeah,
Just terrible. And your little boy was
yeah,
probably horribly traumatized by being taken away from you.
yeah. He went to sleep, and then when he woke up, I was gone.
That's
But it,
terrible.
that was actually, yeah. My mother had never flown before, and she flew from Illinois to Virginia the next day and got him and took him home so she could keep him safe because the legal aid, the lawyer that I had talked to, she told me that if my boyfriend came and kidnapped my son, that legally, because Virginia is a 9/10 possession state, that he could take him and I could do nothing. So,
So
which meant
your mom got there first.
my
So
mom got there and took him home and
wow.
yeah, took care of him during that. Her and my brother both did. And so the next time I saw my son was weeks later. My mom brought him to the
Oh,
jail and she brought him to the visiting window.
oh, oh
And
God.
he had already had his first birthday, which I missed. And
Oh,
she stood him up so he could see me in the window.
oh,
And he didn't have the concept that that was a window. So he ran to give me a hug and he hit the glass and he just looked devastated. And he smacked it and then he kissed it.
oh,
And then he just sat down on the ledge next to the window and just pressed his face on it.
how wrong. How wrong. I thought they would let you sit at,
Hold him.
yeah. Well, maybe they don't allow, I think they don't allow contact, like in these areas, but still, this involves a child.
Right.
Terrible.
Yeah.
That's so wrong. Ah, and so, you missed his milestone
I
based
missed
on a lie.
I missed quite a few milestones, yes.
Mm.
But he was kept safe and they brought him to see me when they could on visiting day.
Hmm. Oh, that was great of your mother to do that.
It was. And as far as the custody case goes, which was in another town,
Oh.
the judge, well, I owe a great thanks to my abuser's sister and her mother-in-law both came and testified on my behalf. And the judge, he said, as long as I was free, there was no way he would give our son custody to him. He said there was no way he would do it as long as I was free. So from that moment forward, I knew
Mhm.
the most important thing was to be free.
Right. Oh, I'm very glad they had the guts to come on your behalf.
I am too. And they were both living in Tennessee, so they flew out there to testify for me. And afterwards, he called Child Protective Services on his sister and reported that she was abusing her children, and she was investigated.
Oh, so that was her retaliation.
Yeah.
So he got
Yeah,
even
he
with
went after
her.
her.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I wish CPS would see a pattern with these things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he already had a history. He had a history when he called and made this claim. He had a history of being in and out of jail and false claims against other people, but and having no evidence of what had happened to me 5 years earlier. He wasn't even present. We weren't even a couple when I had the miscarriage. I
Mm,
only told him about the miscarriage because I was afraid it would affect my ability to have children.
mhm.
And then he said if I left him, he would kill me and or ruin my life.
Oh,
So that's where he went with that.
jeez. So then after, how long did all this take that you were imprisoned in Macon,
I had to
Illinois?
I I had to remain in jail. Um, I mean, a lot of people would be able to be bonded out, but they set my bail at $3 million. They did obviously it was to keep me in. The judge denied my request to have a reduced bond, and that it took 3 months for them to reduce it. I think they've finally reduced it to 70,000, and my family pulled together and took out loans, and my brother actually went bankrupt, and I was out on bond after 3 months, and then I had to wait 3 more months for continuances. They kept continuing and delaying the trial and court appearances, which drained even more money.
Oh,
And so after three more months of that, when the prosecution offered a plea bargain, my mother did not want me to accept the plea bargain. Actually, none of my family did. They did not want me to. My mother's her words were, "We will not rest until you have complete exoneration."
mhm.
But I couldn't take that risk, Marianne.
Ah,
At the time, Illinois had the highest amount of wrongful convictions. And I was in
mm,
a newspaper and on the news all the time as a killer. For the 3 months that I was out on bail, I couldn't walk through the mall without people glaring. My parents were getting hate mail and comments in the grocery stores and snubbed at church. And I could not feel safe going to a jury trial and thinking the right thing was going to, the right thing hadn't happened so far. So why should I start thinking the right thing was going to start to happen? I
right,
couldn't trust that.
right.
So I did accept the plea bargain. I mean, I was still a felon, but they said if I accepted the plea bargain, number one, I wouldn't do more time behind bars. They were going to give, it would be 6 months jail time and 2 years of probation, and they agreed to transfer it back to Virginia so I could go back because I did not want to live. I did not want to live in Illinois any longer.
Uh-huh.
So I
Wow.
did. I accepted that as, and I did it very, very meekly. I was done. I was afraid, and I didn't want to cross. I didn't want any more battles. I just
Mhm.
wanted to go have a life and try my best to forget about it.
Mhm.
Actually, I thought I could forget about it, but apparently that's not real life. That's not how
Oh,
things really work.
isn't that terrible? You get like these intrusive thoughts that pop into
Yeah.
your head. I mean, I get them too. It's like you're mentally not going to be set free from this.
No, no. So it's like it could be just the whiff of dial soap, and I suddenly remember my delousing in the prison we stopped at in
Oh.
Ohio, uh, or anything really. I'm I had a very I'm still having a very good life. I'm very grateful for what I have, and healing is ongoing. It's every
Mhm.
day. And I think for me, that's the most important part, is the fact that there is healing
Mm-hmm.
and there is hope and things can always get better if you
Mm-hmm.
talk about it and you reach out and you know how to reach out. I didn't. I was isolated, and somebody handed me an 800 number once, but an
Mm-hmm.
800 number that it seemed kind of like not helpful. I needed somebody. I
Yeah,
needed somebody right there with me, I think.
right. To talk to and you don't know what's on the other end of the 1-800 number.
Right. Yeah. And I didn't trust anyone either. So a voice on a phone didn't seem like the way to go.
No, no. So then when you got back to Virginia, you were able to keep your son.
I was able to keep my son. I lost my job.
Oh.
I lost my dignity, uh, and a lot of rights, but I had my family.
Mm-hmm. How did you survive without a job in Virginia then? What do you do?
Well, I went to a temp service, and again, I uh, I had been dating somebody, and he stood by my side throughout the entire ordeal.
Mm.
He would even drive from Virginia to Illinois, or yeah, Virginia to Illinois, to visit once a month or so. And we got married. Let's see, I came back to Virginia in January, and we got married in December, and we got married in January.
Oh,
And so we've been married 25 years now.
wow. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
Wow.
Um, so he so he's been very supportive, and with the temp job, uh, back then they didn't do such in like I would never have said made a false claim on my application. I would check the box for felony, but if there was a box for felony, but now they do a lot more thorough background checks.
Hmm. Hmm.
So when those came up, um, I resigned and started doing some acting, which I ended up loving,
Hmm.
and been acting for quite some time. And I started with two other actresses. We started a female empowered production company. So I think that takes me full circle to reaching out and supporting other women.
Hmm.
I think women are we're often put into these isolating predicaments, and we forget that we should come together. I mean, that's the ultimate goal here is, especially with my production company, BAB on 3. It's it's finding strength and empowerment together. There's this alarming division that's kind of snuck up on us. It's almost like an anti-woman climate. And
Hmm.
I think it's it has been it's been I don't know. Back then it was a seemed like a fluke. People thought, oh, nobody would be arrested if they hadn't done anything, or things like that don't really happen. But now we're
Oh.
finding it more and more. Women are being arrested, having miscarriages in the hospital. They're waiting for them, and um, it's time for women to stand up and say, put aside this generational convention of women being quiet and demure and not saying things that make people uncomfortable. And
Hmm.
actually, that was a huge problem for me, is I never wanted to make people uncomfortable, even at the risk of losing part of myself. I
Mm.
just wanted to be nice and liked.
Yeah, right. Because we were raised that way. We were
Yes. And you know what?
conditioned.
That was one of my problems when being questioned by the detectives, is that I was nice and polite because I thought if I was, we could
Oh.
get through this so much more quickly. I even was kind of jovial.
Mm.
Make a joke, people will like you more.
Hmm.
And which led to them saying, she feels no remorse. There's something wrong with her.
And none of this should have happened to begin with.
Right.
They didn't even look into this character's background. and say, oh, he's made other false accusations on other people. And now he's turned his what sister-in-law in for false allegations.
Right.
Let's look into his character. Maybe they're lazy. They probably didn't want to do it.
And it was different states also. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a while ago. Uh,
Oh. Well, I've even found with the female judges, you know, I don't think they like anybody. I don't even think they like themselves. But, you know, I, the female judges I have dealt with didn't like me. And like you said, you try to be respectful when you talk to them, and they're giving you absolutely no respect back. You are dirt to them. And they're also treating guys like this too. So I didn't take it too personal.
right.
I'm just like, what's wrong with these crazy women judges?
Yeah. I don't understand. I don't understand that. And I don't understand being villainized for something that's beyond our control,
Mm-hmm.
um, or taking away someone's voice because they've been incarcerated, or taking away someone's rights to being treated decent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well,
Uh,
I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't want
No,
to
I
cut
was
you.
just going to say, while I was behind bars, um, part of the, what got me through and the survival was the friendships that I forged behind bars. It's people just need people.
Right.
It doesn't matter the circumstances, and
Uh-huh.
doesn't matter that we're different.
Yeah, I thought the women that I met, it really should have been a drug and alcohol unit on that instead of a prison, really, because there were such young ones that were, addicted. They should have been dealing and helping them with
Yeah.
and rehabilitation at the same time.
Yeah. Whenever somebody would get out, everyone said, well, she'll be back. She'll be back because
Oh,
she's addicted.
yeah, and when I was there, there were two young ones that were probably under 20 and they were expecting. I mean, they were fully expecting. And I overheard them talk and they said they're not going to take us into the hospital until we're in full labor. And I should have spoke up to comfort them, but I was just, I was afraid because they were younger than me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But my own midwife said, "Don't call me until you're in full labor." You know what I mean?
I
So,
do. There were several pregnant young women while I was in jail, and one specifically, I, she was waiting to be transported to prison because she was going to be doing some hard time, and she
oh,
was very pregnant, and she went into labor in our cell block one night. Her water broke,
oh no.
and they came and got her, and we waited to hear. We wanted to know what happened, and you know what? They didn't take her to the hospital. They transported her to the other prison, hoping that she could hold on. She was transported in labor to another
Oh,
city. Um,
are they
I never
crazy?
understood. I never understood why one of the other women in my block, she was wiser than me, and she insinuated that it was because the county didn't want to pay for the cost of her going into labor. I did hear that she had her baby at the prison, and that they were in good health.
Yeah,
But
that's what they were telling you, huh? Well, no, I mean,
yeah,
to do that to a person in labor, uh, you
yeah,
don't know if that baby lost oxygen. You don't know. I mean, what?
anything could happen during the
Right.
process of labor. Yeah,
Oh, how wrong. That's another human rights violation. Geez, when does it
yeah.
stop?
When does it stop? You're
Yeah.
right.
Oh, and so, I'm very glad you met somebody nice. Thank God for that.
Yeah, I did. I mean, it was, don't get me wrong, there were plenty of not nice people, both in and out of uniform that I experienced. And
Mm-hmm.
there were fights, and actually, part of the problem for me is that uh, the news would be on in the cell blocks, and they knew who I was, and they
Oh.
wanted to come at me. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
as a they called me the baby killer.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And so I had a circle of friends that would do their best to hide the newspapers or not tell, but they would call me by a different name so that some of the inmates didn't know who I was.
oh, that was good. I mean, there are kind inmates in there. I had met a lot of kind inmates as well. It was the prison guards on
Yeah.
night shift that were bad,
Oh.
you know.
My father was actually one of the guards at the jail where I was held in Macon County.
Wow.
Yeah. Somebody heard me say that during extradition in the van. He said, "Wow, that could be helpful or not. Maybe you don't want to tell anybody that." I don't
Oh yeah.
know.
Jeez. Yeah. Do you know how that went for him? Or he had no, he
For
probably
my
had no,
dad,
yeah.
I think he did his absolute best. I'm sure that that hurt him and shamed him, but he stood by me. And I mean, obviously he was on the men's side of the jail,
Oh
but
yeah.
there were a couple of nights when after everything was locked down, he knocked on my little window and gave me the wave, or
Oh,
he slid a little note under my cell door with a
oh,
happy face on it.
oh, oh. Yeah, it's because I think these female guards are horrible. Really do. I didn't meet one nice female guard. They did have male guards there on day shift that were very nice to me. But when you go into evening shift to night shift, it's just keep quiet and stay out of their hair.
Keeping quiet was definitely a good idea.
Yeah.
And I also learned that sleeping was good because people didn't mess with you as much if you were asleep.
Right, right. Right. I mean, I slept off and on because I was on prescribed medication that they were not giving me, which is a human rights violation
Oh
again,
my
right?
God. Yeah.
Right. And it was benzodiazepines, and I was under the care of a doctor, and you cannot go turkey with these benzodiazepines because they're life-threatening. Hello,
Wow.
judge.
Yeah. Oh goodness.
And so I had gotten really sick. I had warned the guards, I'm going to go into withdrawals just so you guys know this. So all they give you, and I don't know if people know this, but all they give prisoners is Pepto-Bismol and Librium. That's not going to do it.
Huh.
And I asked for my Klonopin, and the guard with her blonde ponytail pulled up really high said, she leaned over the counter, they all want their Klonopin.
Oh my goodness.
And I thought, God's going to deal with you. It's a matter of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just cocky. And I just was like, wow, women turning on women kind of concerns me.
It concerns me a lot. Yeah, I think it's from that it's almost like a deliberate division that's been imposed on us for generations.
Yes.
Again, it's that part of that isolation. I mean, if COVID taught us nothing else, it taught us that being isolated rewires us in the worst possible ways.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And it took me back. Well, it's the Salem witch trials where women were turning on women there.
Yes,
And I'm like,
yeah, to
okay,
save themselves.
yeah.
Ladies were stronger together.
Right. And they were stronger together while they picked on some other woman. You know what I'm saying? What is wrong with this story? Um, I just never understood that. And of course, that's another podcast with the Salem witch trials. But I
I'm
mean,
in. Tell me when.
yeah, all right. Well, yeah, we'll do another one. And it's just I just don't know what to think of all of that. When I was released, I had everyone clap for me. Everyone was clapping. They were very spiritual women. I found there were a lot of very spiritual women in prison
Yeah.
that either we're in there for non-support at taxpayers' expense. People don't realize you're being incarcerated at taxpayers' expense, and you shouldn't have been in there at all based on
Right.
false allegations, which
Right.
lives.
Right.
And nothing was done to this ex-boyfriend. I mean, he just romped around like nothing happened afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, when he came for the custody case,
Hmm.
and so he came out for that. What I heard was, not that I know firsthand, but that he didn't pay his lawyer and his lawyer stopped representing him. So
Hmm.
he didn't follow up after that. What he was going for was full custody and child support, which was ironic to me because how was I going to pay child support? Because I was looking at doing 25 plus years. So he, I was, I had to give him my address and my phone number when I got out of jail.
Oh no.
So my lawyers were had to provide that to his lawyer to give to him, and that horrified me.
Oh my
I,
God.
but apparently, all he wanted was the child support and the custody because he never ever contacted me for any visitation or anything after that. I never heard from him again.
Do you think his lawyers didn't give him your number?
No, I
Which-
think they did. I think
uh,
they did. And you know what? So, a few years later, when and I was married, and we wanted my son to have our last name. We wanted to change his last name, and so we got a lawyer to take care of that, and we had to put something in the newspaper where he lived
mhm,
because that because I didn't know I didn't have his address or anything, thankfully. But
mhm.
he never responded to that either.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a wonderful husband.
Yeah, I do. I do.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's just unbelievable what people go through, and that these false accusations do ruin lives. And
They do. And mine could have been way worse. It 100% could have been worse.
wow, I don't know how much worse.
I got to raise my son and
True.
see him to adulthood. The day I got out of jail, um, and I got to hold him for the first time in 3 months.
Oh,
Um,
oh,
that that was worth saying, okay, you got me. I'm guilty. Can I go home now?
right. Even though I'm not,
Yeah.
you got what you wanted at taxpayers' expense.
Right. I recently, ironically, I think it was NPR was on in a car. It was just the other day, and they were talking about something called I think it was called the Alfred plea, which came about in, I think, 69 or something, when a gentleman was wrongly accused of murder, and he was given this, he was going to be gassed, basically. And they're like, um, we'll give you life in prison if you if you say you're guilty, so a plea bargain. And he did not want to say he was guilty, but he
Hmm.
didn't, but he was going to accept it because otherwise he's going to be executed. And so he said, he wrote, he wrote in or said to the court, I'm accepting this, but I'm not guilty. And they apparently call that the Alfred plea. I wished I had known about that.
Hmm.
I literally went in there, and the judge says, are you pleading guilty?" And I said, "Yes, I'm pleading guilty." And honestly, that destroyed my family. That their daughter was saying that she was guilty of something. Uh, the um, the charge, the reduced charge was concealment of a homicide, is what I
Oh,
pled guilty to. Ironically, it was homicide with no body,
oh,
and a homicide that never happened.
right.
But that's what in the end my felony is consisted of.
What a horrible thing to do to you. And I wonder if you had said, I'm accepting this plea, but I'm not guilty,
I
they
was
may have made
so
more,
afraid.
yeah,
I
they may have
was,
made more trouble for you and said, oh,
yeah,
great, now we have to do a trial.
right,
You don't know what
right.
they're going to do.
I really didn't. I wasn't educated on it. I was very young,
Hmm.
but even so, I was so scared at that point that anything could happen.
Oh, exactly. You'd already been traumatized by this coercive control and this person. I don't even know if I can call him a person. You know,
I
yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, and with the custody, it's just you were lucky to get custody, the whole thing.
Yes, women who are incarcerated are far more likely to lose their parental rights than men who are incarcerated, which
Hmm.
again makes no sense to
Hmm.
me. Uh, 100%. I'm very fortunate that something horrible happened, but we made the best lives possible and we came out okay.
Hmm.
But that's not what's going to happen for everybody, and these things are happening more and more.
Right. That's what scares me.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I can't bear the thought that my own daughter has less autonomy and less rights over her physicality. And um, sh I mean, they're literally redefining very quietly women's rights as being less than human rights.
Hmm.
And if you're not paying attention, all hell is about to blow loose. Break loose, not blow loose. Yes, blow loose.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I uh I know if I had to do my life over again, I probably wouldn't have gotten married, knowing that 1 out of 20 are sociopaths. You don't know what you're marrying. Now, the second guy I married is awesome. I've been married to him going on 13 years. Okay. Thank God for him. Okay. But, uh, but I had known his family at a distance. I had known his sister for 15 years. She just didn't bother to hook us up like we expected her to. So, uh, we did meet, and thankfully, he did actually save my life from other things that were going to happen in the future.
Wow. Wow.
That's another podcast. But, yeah, and it seems like from what I'm hearing that people are saying, like, if you're in family court and you're in prison for non-support or what maybe a false allegation, or they don't let you see your kids, and they're saying, well, these criminals have all these rights.
Hmm.
They can see their kids at any time. And I don't know about that. I mean, from hearing your story, you got to see your kid, but behind a glass, that's not the same as seeing your kid.
No, it's not. I would assume I was in jail the entire time as opposed to a long-term prison facility. I'm assuming that there's a little different in the prisons where they have where they can be in a room with their loved ones. I'm
Mm.
actually I can't speak of that, but that's my guess.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I'm not sure. I mean, when they took me, that when the judge says you're going to jail, but the sign on the building said prison, so I was confused.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
like, I don't know if she knows what she's talking about either, but uh, yeah, it's a terrible injustice to parents and their children when they're falsely accused. This has
It
to
is.
stop.
It is. Uh, I can't even speak to how damaging it I know that it was to my son, even though he was a 1 year old when it happened. Over the years I could definitely see the pain I saw the pain on him through the window that day. As I
Mm.
saw the pain when he ran to me for the first time,
Oh.
realized that there was nothing stopping him, and he got scared and turned around and ran the other way.
Oh. Oh, he probably thought there was more glass there that he could
Yeah.
see through.
Uh,
Aw.
um,
Oh,
yeah.
geez. So he
And there are people out there who put their own agenda ahead of all of these children, and using the children as bargaining chips, and the
hmm
damage that that's doing.
Oh, yes. Yeah, children are pawns.
Right.
Yeah, it's really sick. It's also human trafficking, and people don't realize that at the same time. You know, how you were trafficked and I was trafficked. A bunch of other people have been trafficked. Our kids have been trafficked at taxpayers' expense.
Right.
Oh, yeah. So, how old is your son now?
He is 27
Mm,
and he's doing good. We've had a rough time, but he's doing good.
yeah, yeah. Well, do you think, I mean, having a rough time, maybe he had, residual from that whole experience, even as a 1 year old, as a toddler.
I I do. I think he's had uh, trust issues,
Mm-hmm.
abandonment
Mm-hmm.
issues in a big way, and also issues with finding himself. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I never obviously didn't raise him saying, "Oh, your birth father was a horrible human." Uh, we never spoke like that. Um, but I know there was a questioning, why is he not here? And is that by his choice, or is that by my choice? Did I do that? And what am I missing? What am I missing in my life?
Mm. Well, he's, if this guy can do what he did to you, I wouldn't put him past it doing something to your son. Like
Right.
if your son made contact with him,
Oh, yeah.
how do you know? This guy can't be trusted with either. Anyway, he turned in his own sister-in-law.
Right. Right. When my son reached adulthood, he had he had no interest in looking for his biological father. My husband, that's always been his dad, his first person he ever called dad. So they still have a very close relationship.
Mhm.
Um, but uh, his biological father told me that he was going to kill me in front of our son,
Mhm.
and he was going to raise him, telling him what a bitch his mommy was. And then he said he was going to take him out and get him laid and drunk all the time.
Ah,
That was his plans for his upbringing of our son.
that's yeah. And he probably told you that himself. That's what he was gonna do
Oh,
with
he
you.
told me that a lot. Yeah.
Oh, he's one sick individual.
Oh,
And the thing is, saying, "Oh, I'm gonna get him laid all the time." Okay, so you're gonna set him up for getting someone pregnant to come after him for child support.
right.
Like, ah, it's all weaponized.
Weaponized, and just still again demeaning back towards women.
Right, right. What a thing for a father to have plans for his son.
Yeah.
And did the judge know this in the custody?
You know what? I was never allowed to speak on my behalf. These are things I would have said. I um, would have said he chased me with a shotgun and made me stay outside and held while my son was in the house crying. But wasn't I wasn't allowed to speak on my behalf. I think that's a normal thing. That's what you're advised by your lawyer.
Mhm.
So I had to rely on external witnesses.
Mhm. Mhm. And that's if the judge lets them speak.
Yeah,
That's
right.
another problem. Oh, yeah. So I'm so sorry you went through that. Have you ever taken the ACEs score test?
Asus score test. What is that? I feel like I
That,
should know.
oh, that's okay. I think it's the adverse childhood experience
No.
test. Okay, so my kids took it, and my kids even told me, we scored high on it, Mom. It's like, this is not something you want to score high on. Okay, I took it myself. You can Google ACEs, ACE, apostrophe S, score test. And I pulled up the test. I think it's 14 questions. And one of them is, has one of your parents been incarcerated? So I
Oh.
know my kids could check off that box, you know. So even I took the test and I scored high.
Oh.
And what it says and what it is inferring is that if you score high on this thing, you are open to getting autoimmune diseases, cancers, making you sick from the stress of the what you've been through on these ACEs scores.
Huh. I'll have to look that up.
And it's unfortunately, I mean, it is showing to be true
Wow.
in the cases I have seen. So these judges also have to look at that and concealment of homicide with no body and taking some guy's word for this just doesn't sit right with me, that they would go along with this.
No, they said they were going, the prosecution said they were going to make an example of me. And
Wow.
they said they even likened me in the courtroom during one of the times we were asking for a bond reduction, and they de denied it. They said, as the daughter of a jail corrections officer, they likened me to the daughter of a minister, a Hellraiser, which I never was. I was a
Mm-mm.
shy and quiet and awkward.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
Um,
Yeah, same here. But I mean, for them to use that, that's just, yeah, so twisted.
yeah, I would agree. It is on multiple levels.
Right, right. I don't want to keep you all day. We could talk all day because I think
Yeah.
we've talked on the phone. I think it was 2 hours. We've talked on the
Yeah.
phone a couple months ago, and I looked at your YouTube channel BAB on 3, and that was great.
Oh, I'm glad. I hope you enjoyed it. For it's a whole different vibe than this. It's all comedy, female empowerment, but it's wrapped up with a joke.
Yeah, that's we need positivity and empowerment, and you also empowered your son, and you married a wonderful man that he could look up to,
Right. Thank you.
and that's your son's empowerment, if that makes sense.
It does. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just hope this does not happen to anyone else, and that's why I guess you and I did this podcast so people are aware of false accusations and how they can be taken a bit too far.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah. Is is there anything else you'd like to add?
Um, what?
If you were gonna warn a young woman, I don't know about you, but I go up and talk to people that they probably think I'm crazy. But I was even on TikTok and some young guy made contact with me and I said to him, are you aware of personality disorders? And he goes, no. I said, you be careful because 1 out of 20 are sociopaths. Are you aware of this? Have you ever studied the dark triad of narcissism? You need to go study these personality disorders. And if you come in contact with one, you need to run. So I don't if you were going to warn someone, some girl or some young teenage person, college student, what would you say?
I would say if someone tells you they love you with their words and their actions do not say the same. Anyone who isolates you, who takes you away from your family or friends, or tells you that no one loves you like they do, then you need to get away from that person, put some distance, and seek the support of others.
Hmm. Hmm. Definitely, I agree with that. And I will put your contact information in the podcast notes. And I recommend everyone go to BAB on 3 on YouTube, like and subscribe to this channel. It's very amusing. It's very fun. And I'm so glad to have you on, Gina Dobson. Uh, uh, don't jump off. Uh,
Okay.
Slam the Gavel's a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube. Please like and subscribe, Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, and other platforms. And feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. Thank you. Thank you, Gina Dobson, for speaking out. And I totally appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much.